the third in our series of Alma webinars. We've been running these really since June. They've all been recorded, so you can always get hold of other webinars that you've not attended. We've looked at the future of e-resources and how Alma can support you in their management. We've also looked at evidence-based analytics in a session called From Hindsight to Foresight to Insight. As I say, both were recorded and are available for playback and for you to enjoy. But on to today's session, and the rather intriguingly titled, How Does Alma Allow Me to Be a Librarian Again? I will say that this is How Alma Helps Me to Be a Librarian Again, Part 1. We will be covering this topic across 2 webinars because there's actually so much that I can show you. So, Part 1. In preparing for this event, for this webinar, I thought about what being a librarian meant to me. I am a librarian, qualified librarian, done it for, as you're about to find out, many years. And I looked at this not from a philosophical point of view, you know, what did it mean to me to be a librarian, but rather from a very much a practical point of view, looking at the tasks that, as whatever type of librarian you are, e-resources, serials, working with end users, what those tasks were, and I want to try and address how Alma can help you with those tasks. But back to this idea of me reflecting on what it meant to me. My career, as it were, in librarianship actually started many years ago, back in high school, where my best friend and I were helpers in the school library. And we had this very badge that you can see on screen. We were allowed to wear it on our uniforms and proudly displayed it. It was, in fact, this green badge. And then, once leaving school, well, whilst I was still at school, I spent 5 years working in public libraries. I worked on a weekend and then eventually ended up as a library assistant before I went on to qualify. And that is, on screen, the actual building of the public library I worked in, which was on the outskirts of London, although that picture's actually, I think, from about 100 years ago. I wasn't working there then. Now, obviously, since I started working in libraries, technology has moved on. I have the pleasure to be able to admit that I worked on card catalogues. I worked on catalogues that were managed on microfilm and microfiche. And I worked in libraries where the horrible and somewhat challenging brown issue. And as I say, technology has moved on very significantly from tools that I used back in the day. But what I was thinking as I looked back on how I'd worked in libraries and what tools I was provided with, I felt that some of the overriding challenges that I struggled with 30-odd years ago are probably the same now, even though the tools are different. So I want to think a little bit about how we have automated jobs that we do within the library. And in doing a little bit of research, I was quite surprised actually to discover that libraries have been attempting to automate processes since 1900. This was with the development of machines, obviously hand-driven machines, that would automatically stamp date cards that could then be popped into a book. So that activity, way back 115 years ago, was very much about trying to create efficiencies. And I think it's that statement, create efficiencies, that brings us up to date, brings us up to where we are now in 2015 that we are still all about looking at tools, automating to create efficiencies, because it's all about freeing up library staff, librarians, whatever you want to call yourselves, from the mundane, often repetitive tasks that take up so much of our time. And that's why back in 1900, those library staff worked with manufacturers to create something that would automatically take away one of those mundane tasks, the stamping of a date into a book. So really, what library management systems have been doing since that first drive to automate is to try to allow library staff to focus on more important tasks, maybe on services to end users, freeing up their time to address innovative practice rather than spending time managing inefficient processes. So I think what I'd like to ask you to do is think about your current situation. As I said, we're 115 years on from that first automation attempt, and to think, is your role still actually quite labour-intensive? Do many of the tasks that you have to carry out in whatever your role is still require manual intervention? Alma is a next-generation library system, or indeed next-generation library platform, as many of us will actually refer to this new generation of library systems. And these next-generation platforms are very much all about the efficiency. Now, Alma addresses this requirement to become more efficient, to assist you in becoming more efficient, to move away from those mundane tasks, in a number of ways, and I've just highlighted a few of them here, which I will then go on to demonstrate in today's session. So, Alma is very much built around this concept of automated workflows, where we look at processes that can be automated and only need staff intervention where there's an exception to locally defined rules. For further efficiencies, Alma provides access to data, such as authority headings, and takes care of the updates, and this data is provided centrally. There are configuration options, which are extremely flexible to match your policies and procedures. And Alma supports integration with third-party systems. A good example would be the ability to export invoices as part of your acquisitions process to your institutional finance system, doing away with what would have been in the past a manual process of literally passing paper invoices, inputting them into systems more than once. So, as I said at the beginning, this session is actually part one, because there's so much that Alma can do in terms of driving efficiency in the workplace. So I decided that today's group of examples would look at the following areas: that we would look at Alma's dashboard capability, that we would look at cataloging and the management of metadata, and then look at some tasks within the overall circulation area. So what I'm going to do now is actually take you into Alma, do a demo of these areas, and let's start thinking about how the functionality that I'm going to be showing you could actually be creating efficiencies, taking you away from sort of repetitive tasks in your own library. So let's go to Alma. And we're still, I was just looking at the date, yes, we're a day early to wish Leo Tolstoy a happy birthday, so all of you to remember that for tomorrow. Right, I'm going to log in as one of the members of staff in my demonstration library. My colleague Ewan who works within our circulation area. But actually what we're going to we'll look at first is what Ewan sees when he first logs into Alma. And this is the dashboard, the first item that was on our slide that I said I wanted to talk about. So, Alma is what we call a roles-based system. Any user of Alma has their own individual password. So we have logged on as, here for this demo, as an individual member of staff, as Ewan. And what's behind this idea of roles-based, of every member of staff having their own personal login, is that word personal, the personalization of what they see. It also means that Alma recognizes who you are, and as part of the initial configuration of the system, linked to your login, you will actually only have access to the areas that you need to have access to. So as I said, Ewan works in user services, works in the fulfillment area of things. And this whole area here, or I'm sort of moving my cursor around on screen, is what we call the dashboard. So let's talk about what we can see on the dashboard here. Now, each one of these boxes here, where we're currently seeing the results of reports that have been created in our analytics area, we call each one of these boxes a widget. And this is part of that personalization of the dashboard. So what Ewan has been able to do is he's been able to actually go to this list here that says Add Widget, and based on his role within the library, he has been able to choose which of these widgets, which of these pre-configured reports he would like to have on his dashboard. And in fact, he's just spotted one that's been created, a report that shows patrons of the library by their user group. So he's selected that one as well. And so now you'll be able to see that he's got yet another report running on his dashboard. And the idea is that this is a way of pushing information out to your colleagues, giving them some insight into what's going on in the library. So at a glance, Ewan can see what's going on in his area of the library. And I think that's a very efficient way of working. It's not sort of having to go talk to people saying, can somebody produce me a report on loan statistics? Do I have to do some kind of manual checking? He can, at any time, log in and see the most up-to-date statistics or figures about things that are happening within his area. Another time saver, let me just move this up a little bit, is how we deliver access to our new upgrades to the system and training. So if we go to this menu here that says Help, I can drop down this menu, and as well as you would expect, giving you access to online help, we also have what many people would call context-sensitive help, so help specifically for the page that he's working on. But also, as we release new upgrades to the software, and as you can see from here if you weren't already aware, Alma, part of being a cloud-based system, means that we can do monthly upgrades to the software. We saw from the beginning that we're on the September 15 release of the software. And Ewan doesn't have to go and track down information about what's new in this release. He doesn't have to go and log into a different part of the system to look at what we've got here, these What's New videos. From wherever he is within Alma, if he's got a couple of moments free, he can have a look at the What's New videos. And so this will automatically take him to the customer center, and he can see some of the new features that have been added for this month's upgrade, and can from this point either view the videos or perhaps just remind himself of something he's already read about or looked at. Okay, let's just remove that help menu. Now, earlier on in this presentation, I mentioned this idea of automated workflows and exceptions-based workflows as being one of the ways that Alma really properly addresses creating efficiencies for the users of Alma. And this task list here, up at the top of the screen, is how Alma notifies you about these exceptions. So the idea is that there are a number of tasks, of workflows within everybody's daily work within the library that could be automated, that don't actually need manual intervention unless there is some kind of exception to a rule that you have created. So, for example, Ewan, in his job within fulfillment, gets access to the pick list of items that need to be removed from the shelves. But this process, and we will look at this again in a little while, has started by an end user placing a request through the Primo discovery system. And the staff don't need to have any involvement in it at all until they need to actually go and pick some items from the shelf. And every time that Ewan logs in, he will see this up-to-date list. And so he can see at the moment that there are 5 items awaiting pickup from the shelves, ready to fulfill some hold requests from end users. And by clicking on it from here, he doesn't have to go looking for the list anywhere else in the system. The link is right there in front of him. He can now see that this is the list that needs to be gone and retrieved from the shelves. And as each item is retrieved from the shelf, if he was, for example, using a tablet to access this list and walk around the floors of the library, he can also send the request for the print slip to be printed. So a very efficient way of managing that particular job. Now, he's done this job, he wants to go back to his task list, and again, it's always available to him in this little top-line menu. So he can now see what else needs to be done today, and in his role in the library, he's part of the digitization process. And the digitization process, much like a hold request, will run automatically until it needs somebody to intervene, and in this case, Ewan's responsible for checking the copyright and authorizing it. So he can see that there are 2 items here that are waiting for copyright clearance, so he can now get on with the job and then send it on to the next stage, which will be for the request to go to somebody who'll carry out the digitization. And it's all happening automatically with minimal staff intervention. Okay, so that's a look at what's going on within the dashboard area of the system. In fact, to get back to the dashboard, I can always click on the logo up in the top corner. It would usually be your own logo, not ours. And actually, I'll tell you what, I'll just show you one more thing before I now log in as another member of staff. Here where it says Alma, this is the Alma menu, and let me just show you the menu that Ewan has access to as a member of the fulfillment team, the circulation and user services team. He sees everything to do with fulfillment, but only a tiny bit to do with the management of resources in the library. Essentially, he can search the catalogue, and he can see some administration tasks, and that is because Alma knows who he is and what his roles are within the library. Now, I want to move on from looking at the dashboard to looking at the cataloguing and metadata area. So I'm going to log in as a member of staff who works within that area, and that's our colleague, Katie the cataloger. Now, what we'll see when we log in as Katie, you can see straight away that her dashboard is different to Ewan's dashboard. She works in a different area to him, therefore she's going to want to know about different information. And the widgets that she can have access to, it's a much smaller list, and they are the widgets that relate to her working area. And in fact, what she's keeping an eye on is the activity of cataloguers in her team. And here, a bit of an overview. Where in our cataloguing process here are items. So the majority of the items are happily in place where they should be, but she can keep an overview of those that are still in acquisitions, those on the hold shelf, and so on. So that's the sort of overview she needs to have of what's going on within her area. And if you look at her task list, she's actually only got reminders about one very simple area, because part of her job is to monitor the activation of e-resources as part of the sort of flow from acquisitions through to cataloguing. Now, what I wanted to show you next is how we can offer ways to streamline, to improve the efficiencies of the actual cataloguing process. So we're going to go to the Alma menu, and what you will notice is, again, Katie's menu looks different to Ewan's because she works exclusively within the cataloguing area. So she's got a lot more options here than Ewan did, but she doesn't even have access to that fulfillment, that sort of circulation menu. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to open our metadata editor, so where Katie does a lot of her work in terms of cataloguing. And I'm going to address the challenge of copy cataloguing here, so creating cataloguing records from scratch. So within our metadata editor, I'm going to go to File, I'm going to go to New, and we're looking to create a new Mark 21 bib record. So we've got our largely empty Mark template here, and we are looking to catalogue. I'm going to just enter an ISBN here. So X. Now, I could carry on and do the manual cataloguing, but actually our process here is to allow copy cataloguing to speed up the process. And what we do, how we do this, is to provide access to other available catalogues via Z39.50. So with the ISBN in my new catalogue record, I'm going to go to my Tools menu and choose the option to search external resources. So the screen has split for me, and you'll see here I'm ready to do a search of a Z target. In this case, it's WorldCat, but if I just drop down this list here, you'll see I've actually got access in my library here to a range of catalogues that I regularly use for copy cataloguing purposes. This is not a definitive list. You can choose whichever Z targets are appropriate for your daily work, and if we don't already have them configured within Alma, we'll set those up for you. So you can see I've got quite an eclectic range here of international Z targets, and indeed you can combine Z targets for getting the best results. I'll stick with WorldCat for today, and you'll see that Alma's automatically popped in my ISBN. I happen to have it set up so it automatically pops in this year's date, but I know that this book was not published in 2015. And so what I can just do is click on the search button, so this is doing my Z search of WorldCat, and it will bring back any matching results for me. I'll just wait for that to pop up. And then what we'll be able to see is the range of options that Alma offers for me. So here I've got my matches come through from WorldCat, and I can scroll up and down the list. I can look at the records in more detail to see which is going to be a suitable match for me. And then Alma gives me a range of options here. So I could simply import this record. It may be that I'd actually had a skeleton record within my catalogue, perhaps something that had started life as an acquisitions record, and I want to actually upgrade the record by doing this search of WorldCat. So I'm then given options such as copy and overlay, so copy this record and actually overlay anything that I already had, or indeed merge it, where I've already got a field filled in, leave that as it is, but where information is missing, import that from my Mark record. So that will certainly speed up the process of original cataloguing, or as I say, improving on perhaps skeleton records you've already got in the system. Staying within our metadata editor, another feature we offer that again will create efficiencies is the ability to create templates. So what I had opened over here is the default Mark template with pretty much all the fields you'd want. You can also add further fields if necessary, change the order and so on. But Alma also allows you to create templates, and we've got just a selection here. Sort of Andrew's template. They can be personal. You don't have to share them with people. But also notice that you can create templates for particular material types. You can perhaps make, as we've got here, a very basic template. Very handy perhaps if you've got somebody who's less experienced in cataloguing and who just has to do some very basic data entry for you. Another example I sometimes use when I'm out talking to people about this is maybe you're cataloguing the past year's dissertations, and you do a basic record, and you want to actually have repetitive data already in your template. So your place of publication is going to be your university, your publisher is going to be your university, your date of publication is going to be 2015, something like that. You can actually embed that data into a template, so you're only actually having to add the unique information, your title and your author and so on. And so these templates are a way of speeding up perhaps routine cataloguing tasks. Another thing that we do related to the metadata creation process is in terms of authority headings. We load in advance the Library of Congress authority headings, the mesh subject headings, a lot of regional subject headings for you to use as part of the cataloguing process. So great, they're already there. That's, a fairly standard thing you'd find in a library management system. But what we do, because we are loading that data centrally, you'll remember I mentioned in one of the earlier slides this idea of centralized data provision, we also update those headings. So if the Library of Congress is issuing updates, we will load that into Alma, and that will automatically apply the changes and so on. So it's not a case of you having that sort of always somewhere on your to-do list job of, I've got to go and make the changes to the headings and amendments and so on. We do that for you. So that really does save some time, I'm sure. Just thinking what else I can show. Oh, I know what I'll show you in cataloguing. Yeah. Let's just go to this area we call run jobs. Now, often there's some quite large tasks that you might need to carry out as part of metadata management, cataloging management, such as making a change to a large number of records. And Alma provides that functionality, and with very, very little setup, it will carry out those changes automatically for you. So let's have a look at an example here. So what we've got here in this area called run jobs is we've got what we call normalization tasks. Now this might have been a normalization task that we supply with the system. In fact, I can see by those initials at the front of the description that this has been actually something that's been created by somebody within my demo library. So you can also create your own normalization task. So this one is to fix the 245 second indicator in a range of records. So what I would do is I would select this particular normalization task, and then up here we've got a little a wizard, if you like, that takes me through all the steps in this task. So I'm going to say next. And then this is a list of what we call sets. So what I would have done in advance is I would have searched my catalogue for the items that need this particular tidying up done. And in fact, you can see it here. I've saved it with the name of cleanup of the 245 second indicator. So this is, if you like, a saved search. It is a set of records that need to have this change made to them. So I'm just going to select that and go to the next task. And so this is this the rule we want to use? I could at this point choose a different rule, but no, we're using this particular rule because this is what we want to do. If I then click next, you'll see that I'm now ready to click. Well, the next time I click next, this job will actually happen. I won't actually do that, but Alma is going to automatically run run this job for me and do it for me. And where it says it'll run it as soon as possible, because this is a cloud-based system, rather than running it straight away, and it could potentially be a very big job you're running, it will run at an appropriate time so it doesn't have any impact on anybody else's system. But again, I think a real time-saving task here. And I will mention, actually, that the ability to run these jobs against groups of data, a lot of people make use of this functionality quite soon after they have migrated to Alma from another system. So if you're sort of thinking, well, some of my data's a bit messy in my old system, often what we will suggest to people is, if it's a big task to tidy it up in your existing system, wait till it's in Alma, because there are these powerful tools that you can run automatically that will tidy up the data, and a lot of people do make use of that. So that's running normalization tasks on records that are already in your system. But it is actually possible to set up import rules that run in a similar way, that if you are actually either bringing records in on a one-by-one basis, perhaps via, as I showed you, the Z3950, or you're importing records where, again, you want to run a job against them, Alma will also do that automatically. So if you do a lot of importing, I don't know, say from WorldCat, and you want the local fields removed, you can have that set up to run automatically. So again, that's not a manual job that you're going to have to do. Okay, I think that's probably where I'll finish in terms of the cataloguing, and the final sort of subject area I wanted to talk to you about, the sort of where we have other functionality that really does make your work more efficient. You know, this idea of freeing you up to do something more worthy with your time is within the circulation area. So we'll log out Katie, and we will log back in as Ewan. Okay. All right, so back in as Ewan. So, a couple of things within the sort of what we call overall in Alma the fulfillment area that I think are tasks that really, are tasks that are automated to such an extent that you really can just let Alma do the work and get on and do something else. And we're going to go to the Alma menu. And under the actual user management part of administration, I'm going to go to Find and Manage Users, pull up one of my examples. There she is. And in this area, this little section we've got called attachments, because what I wanted to talk to you about was the production of notices that go out to your users. And the way in which Alma has automated this is to have as your default, notices going out by email, and optionally SMS as well, if that's what you want. And obviously, as part of the configuration of the initial system, you set up when you want the notices to go out. But one of the notices that I think is actually quite useful, I mean, obviously we have as standard overdues. This item has not been brought back. We have what people call, well, sometimes they call it an underdue. Can't say I like, but rather they call it, a courtesy notice. So a reminder just before something is going to be overdue. So we send those, and those should hopefully encourage your users to bring stuff back. But another notice that we have that I think I've not seen anywhere else actually is what we call an activity report. And so this isn't an overdue, it's not a courtesy notice, but it's a notice you can send out on a weekly basis to your users, which basically tells them a summary of their activity within the library. So it tells them everything they've got out, not things that are imminently due back, but everything that they've got out. But it will also include things like, here's the items that you've got holds that haven't been fulfilled yet. It might also remind them about stuff that is on the hold shelf waiting for them to pick up. They will have had a notification about the hold shelf, but this is just a bit of a reminder. And I think by sending out this activity letter, you're assisting the end user to stay on top of what's going on, and ideally if they're getting this notice, there's less perhaps interaction with somebody at a help or inquiry desk. And in fact here, as part of the user record, every notice that they're sent is linked to their record. So if at any time they say, well, I didn't get that notice, you can come in here and you can check. Actually, I'll do one that's a hold notification. You can download it and have a look at it yourself. So let's just pop that up. You can just see what the email that they would have been sent would look like. So there it is. That's one saying that an item's on the hold shelf. And if necessary, just go to that action button again, you can resend the notification, and I think that's really quite useful, to resend, look, I've sent it to you again, it'll pop up in your email inbox, and so on. So I think that's quite a nice feature. But actually, I'll tell you what is creating an awful lot of interest at the moment, and really does make a big difference within the libraries that have implemented it, and that's auto renewal. Now, this is a bit difficult for me to demonstrate because it's a thing that happens. But let's just go to the configuration menu, and we're looking auto loan renewal rules. And what a lot of our Alma libraries have set up, or in the process of setting up, is this idea of auto renewal. That basically, when a user takes out the book, that's it. At the end of the loan period, it will simply auto-renew for them. They'll be notified that it's been auto-renewed, and it will only ever be recalled if another library user has placed a hold on it, has placed a reservation on it. So that means you are doing away with library fines, if you were in a situation where you charged fines, and doing away with processes of having to actually perhaps deal with phone calls or emails where somebody says, please renew my item. But I mean, just in terms of the fines, if you're in a position to do away with fines, that, it doesn't actually become part of your library budget, I mean, certainly from my memory, I'm not sure how much fines really have an impact on getting the speed of getting books back to the library, but also it was just all that time it takes to manage that cash. I certainly have memories of, at the end of the day, unlocking the till, getting all the money sorted away first thing in the morning, having to cash up, and it was really a task that, we could have done without. And so auto-renewal, really making a big difference in a lot of our Alma libraries today. Now, I did mention the digitization workflows and so on earlier, and just to sort of round this look at fulfillment, at circulation off, let's have a quick look at Primo, at the discovery system. And I'm going to do a very simple search here at my items. Now, this is another way of speeding up sort of processes and workflows. What we've got here, this second item, is a book that is actually on the shelves in one of our libraries here. But perhaps our patron is not back at college yet from the summer vacation, or is based at a different site or something like that. But what you can set up as part of the configuration is your own rules for what happens with holds and reservations. And so where we saw the end result of a patron placing a hold, i.e. that in that task list, Ewan was able to pull up the pick list to go to the shelves, here is how the process starts. And you configure what displays in this request options list. Can this particular patron who's logged in here request items? Can they apply for digitization? Can they use your interlibrary loan tools? And even you decide whether you actually allow them to place a hold on something that is actually sat on the shelves, or whether they can only place a hold on something that's actually out on loan. So again, you're doing away with those constant questions of, it's on the shelf, but it's at a different location. Am I allowed to reserve it? Because actually what's appropriate will pop up for the end user, end of discussion. And then finally, again, casting my mind back to when I was last working in an academic library, What we're looking at now is the My Account area of Primo. And, you know, a lot of time was taken up with end users wanting to find out about their interaction with the library. Remind me what I had on loan. Are my items overdue? What status is my reservation at? Now, whilst I'm not advocating that we try to stop our end users talking to us, sometimes the questions are so routine that if we can get the information to them in a different way, it does mean that when we're out there on the floor of the library, we can actually perhaps be interacting with the students who need research help and so forth. And so with the tight integration between Primo and Alma, the sort of information that your end user can automatically get access to is, well, here we're looking at the items that our user here, Rachel, has on loan. She can see when they're due back. She can see at this stage, because they're very overdue, God, ridiculously overdue, this is a demo system, she can see what fines she owes. Now, she's renewed these too many times, or maybe it's because the money she owes, she can't renew them. But if this was a library that didn't have auto-renew, she'd be able to renew from this point. She can also see her historic loans. So, you know, when she's forgotten items she had out and didn't note down for her bibliography, she doesn't have to come to you. She can do them from here. She can also see the status of her requests. So perhaps she missed the email that said this item was ready for her on the hold shelf, but it's also telling her here that it's ready for her to pick up. She can see exactly what fines she owes. She's actually also got some money owing from items she brought back and maybe didn't have anything to pay didn't have any money to pay with at that point. She can see if there's any blocks or messages that the library staff have sent to her. So really, the sorts of tasks, certainly, you know, in the old days, we were always being asked when we were on the floor of the library. The users can now find all that out for themselves. And in terms of the fine paying, we've certainly had sites who have, in that area of fines and fees, have embedded a link to an online payment system. So again, this is not just giving her information, it would be giving her the option to pay her fines. So that's really as far as I want to go in terms of showing you some of the areas that I think Alma really excels at in terms of creating efficiencies. But I hope that that's what I've been able to show you today, that it really is, as I said on one of those earliest slides, Alma is all about the efficiency. I'm doing another session, a slide's going to come up in a minute, to talk about part 2 of this, where we'll look at the same sort of idea, but in areas like the acquisition side of things and analytics and so on. So we'll just go back to the slides just to wrap this up. I think it's also also leaving some time for questions. So let's just pop up the slides again. So these were today's examples. We looked at dashboards, we looked at cataloging and metadata management, and we looked at circulation. Now, what's becoming a bit of a tradition with my my presentations here is that I will always leave the final word to Dilbert, who actually in one of the Dilbert cartoons was able to discover what actually really makes a librarian. So I'll pop that one up for you. You can have, this is one of my absolute all-time favourite cartoons. I don't think there's a place I've worked in that hasn't had this, a library that hasn't had this stuck on the wall somewhere. Okay. So, advertisement, part 2, if you're already excited about what else Alma can offer you in terms of how it allows you to actually do library work rather than perhaps some of these more mundane tasks. We'll be running the next session on the 8th of October. Otherwise, thank you very much. You've got my contact details there if you want, or my Twitter name. But as Ivor said at the beginning, I think he was throwing it open for people to ask questions. So, Ivor, can I hand back to you and see if we've gotten any questions come in from people?
Yes, thanks very much for that, Liz. That was a great presentation. We've got one question that's come through, which was you showed us the loan history for the user in Primo.
Yeah.
Can you confirm there's a loan history for library staff in Alma as well?
Oh gosh, yes. I should have shown you that, shouldn't I? Yes, absolutely. Let me show you where that is. We're just in Primo. Let me bob back into Alma. Yeah. Let's go to the menu. Yeah, we're logged in as Ewan. And in fact, if I go under the fulfillment menu to the checkout, check-in area, I mean, obviously, we're aware that, anywhere up to sort of 95% of circulation transactions these days are usually done by your shelf check equipment. We do obviously have issue and return screens in Alma. And this Manage Patron Services one, which also sort of, which acts as the checkout screen rather, also gives you access to a lot of information about the patron you're dealing with. So this is the point at which you would scan in a barcode, but my memory's not what it is, so I do it all by name here. So here's my patron, and I can see a lot of information about what's going on here, but here's quite a nice feature. As I start to check out items for her, I will start to see here a display of the items I've checked out, but if I go over to here in this loan display option and just change it from this session to all, I quickly, on the fly, get a loan history for her. So that's everything she's got out at the moment. If I go to the returns area, same idea. All of the items she's returned, i.e. that's her loan history, the items she's borrowed, I've got them all here. And then actually I can interrogate it further if I wanted to go to actual copy level by clicking on the barcode. I've got a loan history for that copy, not just the loan history for this particular patron. So it's not the only place that they can get the loan history is in their Primo record. Obviously we've got the information, and obviously it's within Alma, so we can actually report on it and so forth. But it does mean that if somebody just wants to quickly have a look, it's more efficient for us to say it's in your My Account area of Primo. I hope that. Yep. Sorry, it's probably something I should have shown as part of the demo.
That's great. Thank you very much, Elisabeth. That's all the time we've got for today's webinar. I do have some questions and comments that we've not been able to address yet, so I promise that if yours was one of those, we'll contact you separately with the answers. I understand that a few of you may have had some problems with accessing the audio, so please look out for our email, which will contain a link to the webinar recording, and that will be sent through to you in the next few days. It'll be hosted on YouTube, so nobody should have any trouble accessing it. And on behalf of Elisabeth and all of the team at Ex Libris, I'd like to thank you for joining us and wish you a very good day.